It's my first year doing pop-ups and markets for my small business, and in total I did about 17 markets between April to December of this year. I definitely learned a lot along the way that I would love to share with anybody who is looking to maybe start vending at markets or just trying to elevate their experience at markets. But a quick note is that a lot of the pop-ups that I do, I'm mainly the only vendor there at a retail store, and then for markets I'm like with 50 to 60 other vendors in an enclosed space. Jumping right into the first tip, it's to always go to the market at the time that they allow you to unpack and not wait until the market starts. So a lot of markets, they actually require a vendor fee. It's usually quite hefty. It could be from like, $60 to $300 depending on the market itself. If it's a very popular one, it's obviously going to be at the higher end. Because there is a vendor fee, you really want to maximize your time at the location. But when it comes to unpacking and setting up your table or your booth, as you can imagine, it takes a bit of time to actually do that. For me, it takes about maybe 30 or so minutes. That doesn't include me finding a parking spot in the area and then unloading everything onto my wagon, walking over to the location. I'm just strictly speaking of like me being at the location and then unpacking the table and everything. That takes 30 minutes already. So you really want to like make sure you plan out how far the parking lot is to location and is there even like a parking spot and everything. But anyways, the whole tip here is that you want to make sure you get there on time because you want to make sure you're set up and get those early sales. So when the setup time is at 10, even though the market actually starts at 12, I like to be there at 10 because I like to get those early sales. They say that sales are made when you're at the right place and in the right time. And I feel like there were many moments where I was one of the first ones that were done unpacking and set up my table versus like my other neighbors or other vendors who are still kind of unpacking, setting up. And I ended up getting the sales because I was the only table that was ready to sell. Usually the places that I vend at, it's like a public place. It's not a like convention or anything where there is a timed opening and closing. So there is definitely going to be people just walking around and shopping. And so because again, I was ready, they just came to my table and bought my things. And there was just many moments where like I made sale before the market even opened. So as they say, like early bird gets the worm in this case. So make sure you actually just go unpack as quickly as possible at the time that they give you, and then you get that like extra 30 to an hour of selling versus when you actually start at whatever time to the end time, you're gonna lose out on those like beforehand sales. My second tip is to not bring your entire studio. And I'm actually guilty of this in the very beginning of when I started doing markets because I didn't know how much to bring or how little to bring. But after a few markets, you kind of understand like what does well, what doesn't, how much you should actually bring. But again, that also differs location to location. So for example, in one location for me, I like typically sell more pins, but then in another location, I sell more stickers. So it really depends on maybe the demographic of the location. But again, after like a few times of doing markets in certain locations, you kind of have that gauge of what's gonna sell. For example, if I sold 20 pins in a market, I like to pack maybe 20 of each of the pins that I have versus having to pack hundreds of each pin that I have. It's just so annoying to like have to pack your studio and then unpack it afterwards. I like to keep it simple and kind of bring the same amount of every pin, every sticker to the markets rather than having to lug my whole room to each market that I go to. My next tip is to have bundle deals. I feel like people love a good bundle. So for me, I have bundles for all my items. For my stickers, I have like a buy one for $2, and then buy three, it's $5. I've seen a lot of people not go for that $1 sticker, but instead go for that $3, $4, $5 because it's such a good deal. But I also feel like this only works on certain items that people tend to buy in bulk. For example, my stickers are items that you could buy in bulk. And then also I've seen success with my greeting cards because people tend to buy in advance. I've seen so many customers say like, hey, I'm gonna need like birthday cards for the season, so I might as well buy 3. Versus maybe my pins that don't necessarily have to be bought in bulk. A lot of people just buy 1 or 2 because they just want, you know, 1 or 2 for themselves. But if they're shopping with their friend, I do encourage them and let them know about a 3 bundle because, you know, like the more they buy, the cheaper it is, so might as well buy it together. And at the end of the day, you get that higher basket value without really losing out on profitability. So 1, have good deals, but then 2, make sure that the deals that you're giving, you're not losing out on profitability. Like at the end of the day, if I'm doing that 3 for $5 sticker bundle, I'm not losing money there because it doesn't cost me that much to make stickers. Okay, my next tip is to be consistent with doing markets. I feel like people often ask me if I'm like a regular at a certain place, and I'm just like, no, this is like my first time here, or I only do it like once a quarter or something, just because I feel like this year for me, I've been trying out a lot of new places, but for certain locations I've noticed that they like to come back time and time again. And there's this saying, maybe it's mostly for like social media and marketing, but maybe it could be also applicable to pop-up events, but they say that a lot of customers buy your things after seeing it maybe 8 or 9 times. So they have to see your stuff on social media 8 or 9 times before thinking about purchasing something. So if they see you often at a market, they'll eventually buy from you. It's probably not just like a good time when they first saw you, but the next time they see you, they'll probably buy from you. And in the same vein of being consistent at a market, you should try markets multiple times to see if it is actually good or bad. Because I feel like there are many times where, especially this year when I'm like just starting out vending, I'm like asking a lot of vendors what are good places to go to, and they always suggest like certain ones, and then I try it out and it sucks. And I feel like that's just, you have to like try it multiple times before you can say it's bad. Because this summer I went to a market and it just was so sucky because it was outdoors for one, and so it was super hot, and we were again outside and no one, you know, wanted to go outside. It's 100 degrees, no one's shopping, so obviously I had a very bad experience. Everyone else also had similar experiences, but the people who did it the week before or the week after, they had a completely different experience only because it was the different weather. But it's just unfortunate that, you know, you may have had a bad day because of the weather. So you definitely want to like test it out a couple of times, 2 or 3 times, to see if it really does suck. Because I have done things multiple times and there again are bad days, but then there are also very good days. So you never know like what's gonna happen. And then the next tip is to make sure you have a good display and make your table memorable. Make sure your table is in the color scheme of your brand colors. For example, for me, My colors for my brand is very pastel pink and blue, so I wanted to make sure that my table emulated that. By having a table that resonates with your brand colors, it just makes your brand more recognizable. For example, again, my colors being very pastel, it's the same colors that I have on my website. When they go to my table, get a business card, go to my website, it's all the same, and they just kind of remember my table because all the colors are the same. I feel like a lot of people are very visual, and because everything kind of connects, it's just easier for them to remember you by. And then another thing regarding your table is making sure it's interactive a little bit. I think it's so easy for a customer to kind of just walk by your table, take a little look, and then walk away. And you know, that's exactly what I had in the beginning of when I first started doing markets. But then midway through, I had expanded my greeting cards. So I bought a spinning greeting card holder, and I noticed a lot of people kind of stuck around and they were spinning the thing and then kind of checking out the rest of the table rather than just walking away. So make your table a little interactive by having things that they can touch or things that they can play with. I know a lot of tables have like a gachapon situation where they pay a certain amount and then they can play the gachapon and get a prize out of it. But again, you don't have to go that hard. You can also just get a spinny thing or a Lazy Susan to make your table a little bit more interactive. The goal here is to keep your customer at your table longer so that they can browse through your products instead of them just quickly walking away. And so those are all the tips that I have for you in regards to what I learned from doing a million pop-ups this year. I'm definitely going to be bringing along these to my next market next year, but hopefully you learned a little bit as well and can use them for your markets or encourages you to start doing markets as well. But until next time, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to more videos like this.